What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Putback on SNY.TV. I'm Ian Begley, and we have a new co-pilot, Chris Williamson, to welcome along.
Thanks, Ian. I'm excited to join the ride. Let's kick it off with the baseline. Now, with the NBA Finals on the horizon, Ian, there's still a little time and a lot of questions heading into the offseason, including the cap situation. So how does this impact the Knicks?
Something to keep an eye on with the Knicks and with every team in the league is if the cap takes a precipitous drop because of revenue decreases, you're going to look at teams who are trying to shed salary, whether it be via trades or maybe even being more open to dealing their first-round pick because they don't want to be committed to that salary. They want to get money off their books. Maybe they want to get out of the luxury tax. We've heard about Golden State since lottery night. They'll probably be open to trading that number 2 overall pick because of where they are. They want to win a title. They're not interested in grooming a young player. But you're also starting to hear teams keeping an eye on the situation in Atlanta. They feel that the Hawks may be open to dealing their first-round pick. So that's something to keep an eye on for the Knicks and the Nets.
And what?
I have heard that the Knicks have been in touch with Kira Lewis Jr., the point guard coming out into this draft, so you can add his name to the list of point guards that are on the Knicks' radar as we get closer to this mid-November draft.
Ian, obviously, Kira Lewis from Alabama will be a great fit for the Knicks looking for a guard. Where do you think he projects in this year's draft?
He could be right there at 8 for the Knicks. He's projected in that 8 to 14 range. So depending on how things shake out for them, you think Cole Anthony would also be available at that spot for the Knicks if they do stay at 8.
All the stuff in the media and stuff on how I am and just pretty much just they want to know me.
And that's what the Knicks asked you about as well?
Yeah. Any team I go to, I feel like it's the perfect fit or a good fit.
This week's guest has had a front row seat to the Knicks for more than 2 decades. Frank Isola, host of the starting lineup on Sirius XM NBA Radio and panelist on ESPN's Around the Horn and PTI.
There's a perception among some of these fans that you are anti-Knicks, and I don't think that's the case. I think you just tell the truth the way you see it. Do you hate the Knicks?
I hate that they lose all the time, but I got my guy Walt Frazier. Come on, man. Willis Reed. Come on. I always say this to the fans. Why would you be okay with what the results have been over the last 20 years? And the Knicks have passionate fans. I think they're a little unrealistic, and I think they're always looking for scapegoats instead of holding management accountable. You know, with the Yankees, they hold management ownership accountable when the results aren't there. And I think the fans get a little too wrapped up in thinking that, it's just the media being negative. Look at the wins and losses. That's all that matters.
You've seen so many executives and coaches come through the doors at MSG. So what do you think about this pairing, Rose and Thibodaux? And do you think it's going to work? I mean, can you give us some insight into these two guys?
You know, on the one hand, it's good when you have the guy that's running the team, Leon Rose. He has a long relationship with Tom Thibodeau. But let's remember, Phil Jackson had a long-term relationship with Derek Fisher, and it didn't necessarily work out. But I do think this is a little bit different. I think that Leon has been really patient in his approach, almost tedious to a certain degree. I think he's smart, he's diligent. He always knew what he was going to get in Tom. He's someone that he can trust. And I think when you look at all these teams that are successful, you need management and the head coach to be on the same page, to be pulling in the right direction. Look at what's happening in Miami. Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley have been together forever, and Mickey Arison, the owner, kind of lets them run the show. And I think that's kind of a good model to go after.
With Leon, though, he's not going to talk a big game, is my
No.
guess. He's not going to drum up expectations. I think he's going to just work quietly behind the scenes. And, you know, the hope, obviously, for them is that the results speak for themselves.
You know, why can't the Knicks be the 8th seed next year in the NBA playoffs? If you get a good draft pick, you make a couple of moves. Look what the Miami Heat did. So I think the Knicks are looking for a high draft pick, which they'll get, and, you know, getting a good player, I should say, hoping that the players they have developed, kind of finding maybe a diamond in the rough out there. Miami found Duncan Robinson. Those players are out there for the Knicks, and maybe making a smart trade, free agent signing. I think their expectations like they should be. You know, the Knicks have been losing way too much. Don't make it, it's about this year, development year. We'll see how we do. No, make the playoffs. In the Eastern Conference, why can't they be the 8th seed? I think that's a realistic goal, and I'll bet you that Tom is thinking along those same lines.
Yeah, I've heard, people over there have talked to friends, and they're looking at this season as not like, a Sam Hinkie kind of deal where they're punting it. I think they want to be competitive, as competitive as they can be.
He went to Minnesota I believe it was 12 or 13 years since they had last made the playoffs.
13,
and
yeah.
Tom went in there and he ruffled some feathers because guess what? Winning is not easy. If winning were easy, everyone would do it. The hard thing is to win. And I think Tom went in there in Minnesota year one and he's thinking, I want to win right now. And I think he's going to have that same approach with the Knicks. It's not going to be like, yeah, let's kind of ease into this. No, that's not going to be the case. He's going to want to win.
Hey Ian, huge fan of the show. You have been reporting recently that there's a possibility of CP3 coming to the Garden this offseason, but the reaction to that possibility has been mixed at best on Knicks Twitter. So what are the benefits of CP3 joining this team? Watch the tailgate.
Michelle, thanks for the kind words. Love the tailgate. With regards to Chris Paul, I think what you look at is his history of winning in this league. And last year, look what he did with an Oklahoma City team that nobody expected anything from. They make a great run. He really helps develop Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and he gets the most out of that team. So for the Knicks, it would be about Chris Paul helping these young players, RJ Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, everybody else, build winning habits. If you're just losing games and getting your brains beat in every night, young players can develop bad habits. So I think that's where you're at with CP3 and the Knicks and why it may make sense.
I know with Frank here, I knew Frank for a long time now. He told me a lot about the NBA, what it takes to stay in the NBA. So yeah, it's all about just coming in and wanting to just be hungry on the defensive end. I can guard 1, 2, 3.
I still talk to Patrick to this day, and I'll always goof around with him and say, we probably should apologize to you all the time because you took more criticism than anybody, and you were always great with us, and he really was.
I thought Carmelo did a good job of handling, all the criticism, daily shots from Phil Jackson. I thought he did a pretty good job day in and day out of being the face of the team in the middle of some tough situations.
I think it's a bit of revisionist history, the way they think that the media covered Carmelo. We all liked him, but we were critical of him at times. And I think that Carmelo was aware of stuff that was being said about him. But I think Carmelo carried himself like a superstar player. And I think he kind of understood that with the territory, you're going to get criticized some.
And we're still waiting to see like a superstar who wants to come and embrace that challenge. And as we saw with KD, said, I didn't want to have the spotlight on me. I wanted to be in Brooklyn by myself chilling. So it's very refreshing to see somebody like Carmelo.
Miami kind of went through this after LeBron left, where they had some losing seasons. And, maybe there was this talk in Miami that LeBron somehow sabotaged the Heat and all of a sudden made it not cool to go there. Once they became a good team, Jimmy Butler was the one who took that leap of faith. I think for the Knicks, you have to get good and then add that free agent who believes he can put you over the top. Because I think for a lot of free agents, there's a lot of stuff to look at when you go to New York. I think they're thinking to themselves, well, look at the history there. Chances are if I go, I'm going to fail. Is it really worth the aggravation? To be criticized by the fans, to be criticized by the media, is the management team the right team that can build a winner? I think that I never think it's just one thing. I think Kevin Durant, when he says the media, he knows that he's going to trigger a lot of people when he says it, but I think it's more than that. I think it's top to bottom. There's questions that a lot of the free agents have.
What's the biggest, though, what if, when you look back at the Knicks and how they've gone since you've had that front row seat covering them?
Well, there's been a couple. I think if you go back to when Don Nelson was the coach, Don Nelson wanted to bring in Tim Hardaway. He wanted to trade Derek Harper for Tim Hardaway. This was right before he went to Miami. And you think about what Tim Hardaway did there in Miami, and I think if you put him with the Knicks, I think they really could have challenged Chicago. And once Michael left, maybe they could have been a championship team, even though they made it to a finals. And then, of course, I think in 2010, right around that time when they didn't draft Steph Curry, that's the player they wanted. Donnie Walsh wanted him. Mike D'Antoni wanted him. If they wanted him that badly, they should have figured out a way just to trade up.
Frank, thanks so much for joining us. For Chris, I'm Ian. We'll see you next week on the Putback.